Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. On Thursday night, we had our annual celebration here at the temple. It was a great night. We had 6 deserving and fantastic honorees. We had 370 people here. We might have had one of our best years in fundraising. It was a great night all around. And one of the members of the synagogue at the beginning of the night came up to me and said, "Rabbi, here's a drink for you." It was a scotch. And I said, "Thank you very much, but I don't drink before I have to work." And the person looked at me kind of silly. I said, "I'm serious. I have to give some talks tonight. I have to say some things to our honorees, and I will gladly have a sip of a drink afterwards if I'm not driving. I'm very particular about that, as you all should be also." I said, "But afterwards I'll have a drink, but I won't do it beforehand. And I do the same rule at, obviously, bar mitzvahs. Anyone drinking it earlier should see me. And I don't do it at weddings, but afterwards I will." And I explained to this person a really interesting law that I just learned when I was in the Emirates in Bahrain. Many of you might know that there are some Muslim countries that have parts of Sharia law that are dry. The Emirates are different. So an observant Emirati who is Muslim will not drink, but you can find alcohol in the Emirates, especially at certain hotels. But in Saudi Arabia, you can't. In Egypt, for sure, you cannot really find alcohol. And on Egyptian Air, for example, I remember Lloyd telling me the story once, they don't serve alcohol at all. Why is that? Why do they have this rule? Well, the reason is because in Islam, a devout Muslim prays 5 times a day, and you are forbidden to pray intoxicated. If you are drunk, you can't pray, and you can't miss prayer, and you can't pray while you are intoxicated. So as a result of that, one of the reasons why Islam is a dry religion is because you can't pray to God inebriated. It's actually a very simple and beautiful explanation to this part of the ruling. Now, Judaism has the exact same rule. We are forbidden to pray intoxicated. However, we only pray 3 times a day. And we don't have, all these different times in the middle. And there's another moment in Judaism that we're actually commanded. There's more than one. There are multiple moments in Judaism where we're commanded to drink and even to get a little tipsy. Purim is one of those holidays, and the other holiday is Passover, 4 cups. And we're supposed to be happy at other occasions where we drink from wine, and it's supposed to lend our spirits to happiness and to frivolity. But we know that if we daven the Mariv prayer at 6:00 p.m. and we were to become slightly inebriated, that by 7 a.m. the next morning for Shacharit, that should wear off and we can be focused on our prayers. If we get more than that so that we can't, then we've drunk too much, and we have basically transgressed the very same rule that Islam has set up. But there's another reason in Judaism and another reason in Islam why they discourage heavy drinking. And that reason is because when you drink too much, you can behave in a way that is not representative of the values of our religion. So imagine you're walking down the street and you see an observant Jew any day of the week with a yarmulke on, or perhaps a woman with a head covering and covering all the way up to their ankles and their wrists. And you see them sipping from a bottle and behaving in a way that is absolutely embarrassing and reprehensible to our religion. Imagine that feeling we get. And I imagine that people in a different religion who saw leaders of their religion behaving that way would have the same exact feeling. Basically, what it's saying is that if you behave in a way as a representative of our religion, not necessarily the leader, but a representative, and it doesn't make us proud, then what you're doing is really harmful to all of the religion. So I share that with you because this week we learn about a particular role in the Torah that is unique, but not so unique. It's the role of the Kohen Gadol that no longer exists in today's society. The Kohen and the Kohen Gadol was really the original monarchy. And by that, I mean, those people were not elected to the position and they were not chosen to the position, they were born into the position. Anyone here who is a Kohen inherently has a parent who was a Kohen. That's the only way you get into the Kohen role. The same thing for the Levites. So this was the original monarchy. And the Kohen of old had these very special relationships, and more importantly, they had special responsibilities. The Kohen was the local doctor who had to check for diseases or leprosy, skin afflictions, and the like. They were the local judges who had to determine who was guilty or responsible of particular crimes, misdemeanors, or felonies, and how their punishment would be enacted. And they were the equivalent of governmental leaders that set taxes and that established who and what needed to be brought to make things right. And then in addition to all of that, they were religious leaders as well. So I asked the question to all of you, what did we do when the Kohen misbehaved? What did we do when the Kohen got so inebriated that they were an embarrassment not only to all the Kohens, but also to all of the Jewish people? What do we do when they did something wrong? Now, if you or me, those who aren't Kohens here or in that time, behaved in a way that was wrong, if we missed a prayer or we did something that felt egregious, the way that we make it right is we went to the Kohen and offered a sacrifice. There are sin sacrifices that are offered, Thanksgiving sacrifices. There are ways that we make wrong our right. Obviously, the first thing that all of us do is we recognize what that wrong was by admitting it to ourselves and then bringing it to the priest and bringing it to the temple and offering that Kohen, the priest, this sacrifice. But what do we do when the priest is the one that behaves in a way that isn't right? What do we do when our leaders, whether they are elected or they are inherited, behave in a way that is reprehensible, that is embarrassing, that deserves reproach? What do we do? I heard a phrase about leadership, and it's something that I have struggled with often, that embodies that wrestling moment for me quite perfectly. And the phrase is, the best of humanity is human at best. The best of humanity is human at best. What does that mean? Well, to me it means that it is unfair, unwelcome, to put upon any human being, whether they be a Kohen or whether they be an Israelite, whether they be President of the United States, Prime Minister of the State of Israel, an ambassador to Finland, or our local dog license collector. To put any rule or expectation upon them that is different than any of us. Shouldn't they be entitled to enjoy a wedding or a bar mitzvah, and after they've done their role, have a l'chaim and enjoy life? Shouldn't they be allowed to tell a joke that's extra funny, but perhaps just on the line sometimes? Shouldn't they be allowed to make mistakes like you and I? Aren't we all just human? And if every one of us out here has the ability to make right that which we made wrong, whether it be on Yom Kippur, whether it be in daily prayer, whether it be through the temple of old, then why would we forbid the priests who are merely human to do the same? One of the reasons why I am so proud to be Jewish. Now, I realize I was born into being Jewish, but many people choose it. And for all intents and purposes, I choose to be Jewish too. As an adult, I don't have to subscribe to the religion I was born into. But one of the reasons I'm so much more proud of my religion of Judaism and why I lean into it over Christianity, and this is not to denigrate Christianity or put down Christianity. There are parts of Christianity that I am indeed envious of. But one piece that I think we have the edge on is that the characters that are our leaders that we put up on the pedestal are flawed individuals. Moses, riddled with flaws. Aaron, flaws. Abraham, flaws. Sarah, flaws. Rebecca, flaws. King David, flaws. All of these people, and I can list chapter and verse of the things that they did wrong that make them incredibly human. Whether King David with his extramarital affairs, or whether it's Moses and his temper in hitting the rock, or whether it's Sarah with her inability to be gracious and welcoming to Hagar, all of these characters are really made whole by their imperfections. But in Christianity, the ultimate character is perfect. And perhaps that's one of the major differences between us. So I'm not going to be coy with all of you today. I'm not going to just talk about this topic because it's Vayikra and it's on my mind. It's also on my mind because the two countries that matter the most to me in the world, the United States of America and the State of Israel, are both riddled with this challenge today. In the State of Israel, the prime minister of the state is on trial and under investigation for corruption. He's not on trial and under investigation for not following the proper building code when he built his new apartment. He's not on trial and under investigation for not filing the taxes properly when his mother died and how he inherited it. He's on trial for corruption. And the laws that were just passed are, in essence, a force field around him and his role, and not being able to put him in prison should he be found guilty of that corruption charge. And in the United States of America, our immediate past president is under imminent indictment. The only question is which indictment will come first and which one will be most potent. There'll be some that say it's a witch hunt, some that say we're out to get him, but the truth of the matter is the reason why it's the first president in history that is in this category is because it's the first president in history that has done these level of crimes, allegedly. And I thought about the significant difference between the Abrahams, the Moses, the King Davids, the Sarahs and the Rebeccas, the you and the me, and the presidents and the premierships. You see, when I start to unpeel the onion and unravel this, I realize that indeed, the best of humanity is human at best. That the best of any person, man or woman, elected official, or something they inherit, is a human being. And they are flawed, like you and me. And they can, they will, and they should make mistakes to remind all of us that indeed they are human. But the difference between the King Davids and the Abrahams and the Sarahs and the Rebeccas, and the difference between those two characters of those countries that I love, is those two have a seeming inability to admit the wrong. To say, I have done something that I wish I could do over again, that I wish I could make right. And in essence, that is exactly what the purpose of the priest of old was. The priest of old was someone that we came to when we realized that we did something wrong, that we misbehaved, regardless of how egregious it was. And we had to cleanse our souls internally. We had to make right that which was wrong between those who we wronged, between us and God and us and ourselves. And one of the vehicles for doing that, it was admitting that wrong, and the way that we admit it was by bringing a sacrifice to the priest. And even the priest could do something wrong. Even the priest could behave in a way that is not representative of the values that we ascribe towards. I don't fault the prime minister or the president or the priest or any rabbi who one time, maybe before their remarks or before the wedding they officiate at or before the bar mitzvah, behaves in a way that's embarrassing, because they're all human after all. Every single person makes mistakes. God knows I'm not immune to them, and you're not immune to them. The only difference is that when it comes to these mistakes, we have to own them. Because if we cannot own them and take responsibility for them, then how do we expunge them and begin again? Which is the core principle of who we are as Jews. It is the fundamental foundation of our entire set of seasons on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And it's not limited to that, because we say it every single day in our liturgy when we ask God, Salach lanu avinu ki chatanu, forgive us, O God, because we have sinned. All of us make mistakes. And regardless of what title in the land you have, we can err. Perhaps for those of us that have to take moments of leadership, it should cause us just a little bit more pause when thinking about the gravity and importance of the decisions we make. And perhaps all of us who are in positions of judgment can have just a little bit more leniency when looking at the flaws and mistakes of those that we look up to. But regardless of what status we have in life, let us all be able to own those mistakes, to embrace those flaws, to be able to seek forgiveness when we do something wrong, and to start over again. Or else we have no need for the priest of old, the temple of today, and that process of beginning again. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. We continue our